Hi.
We are.
You are. You're amazing. You're absolutely amazing. I've been listening to you, as many other people here have, for a long time. And I have kind of a couple questions, and they went in my head and then out my head, I think, because of a little bit of nervousness. But my first question is...
One of the things that we've noticed often is that sometimes you will form a question from a place of some resistance. The vibration of a question and the vibration of an answer are very different vibrations, just like the vibration of a problem and the vibration of a solution. And so sometimes you come with an intention to ask about something, but then you get into the receiving mode and then you can't find the question because you're in a different vibrational place. Life just looks different to you when you're feeling good than when you're not feeling good. Mm-hmm. And so that's really worth talking about.
Maybe it's a senior moment. But
well, that's clunking an engine down on the end of the train that you don't want, because it's talking about disability or it's talking about something different than you really want to.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't like to think in terms of age. That was more humorous, but sometimes I keep getting reminded of advancing age, and I spend a lot of my time, I've spent a lot of my life trying to fight against it by being healthy and exercising.
We know. But we believe that as a result of this conversation today, that you have allowed us to help you put the emphasis on vibration rather than anything else. The other day, Esther was watching Kate and Luke, her grandchildren, and she was, like the friend before, she was feeling a little envy about how much physical life in these bodies that they still have ahead of them. She was sort of counting her logical years and their logical years, and she was wishing that she had, knowing what she now knows, she was wishing that she had their logical years. And it didn't feel good to her as she had that thought. And once she settled down a little bit, we said to her, Esther, you know, you and these kids have exactly the same now, which means you can tune into this true current and feel the fullness of your now, or you can pinch yourself off for some unnecessary reason. The more of your nows that you plug your toaster in, then the more years you're going to be making toast. Mm-hmm. You see what we're getting at? And in that way, you are exactly equal. Everyone has the same opportunity right now to allow alignment or to disallow alignment. And if your habit, if your quest, and then your habit, and then your successful habit is to allow alignment, then those thoughts really fall by the wayside. You begin to understand that everyone has the same advantage or disadvantage, and it is all self-applied. You see, it's about how much right now, in this moment, am I, through my thought process, allowing the fullness of who I am to be present. And the more you practice it and the more you allow the fullness of who you are to be present, then the more you have fun, the more agile and flexible you feel, the more resilient you are, the more energy you have, the more life you have to enjoy.
Well, that's loaded, and I believe and agree with all of that.
Yes.
My basic struggle, and I think it's for much of my life, and I'm starting to realize that I've created...
Before you go further, do you understand that you couldn't have a struggle if you weren't pulling back against the inevitable that your inner being knows? Struggle is every single time you pulling against what you've asked your inner being to hold for you. Mm-hmm. Ooh, don't you like knowing that? So you're on the end of this tug of war, and it's a struggle. But it wouldn't be if your inner being weren't trying to pull you in the direction of who you really are. So if you'll let go of the rope, your inner being will take you right to everything that you've asked for. You could stop the struggle right now. You're the only one struggling, not you. You, in your humandom, are the only aspect of you that is struggling.
Is it possible, and I know in conventional psychology, and I'm not a psychologist, but in conventional, what I understand it to be, they talk about a subconscious. So I'm trying very hard on a daily basis. I listen to your tapes. I try to think the positive thoughts and focus on the feelings. There's always something that yanks me back. Is there something running in my background?
For this reason, certainly you do have thoughts that are running in the background. We're not saying that that is not true. But for something to be a big enough player, for it to be hindering you, means you have to be feeling emotion around it. So if it is so subconscious or unconscious that you're not feeling anything around it, then it's not a big enough player to be affecting your experience at all. Don't you like knowing that? It isn't that there are subconscious or unconscious thoughts that are hindering you that you just don't know about. It's that you're willing to put up with thoughts that feel negative. That's what's going on. You're willing to put up with thoughts that don't feel good. Esther catches herself in one every now and again, every day. In other words, you can't live life without seeing something that you have a somewhat response to. But these days, as she has a response to it, she will say to herself, well, that was unnecessary. That was unnecessary. And just acknowledging that it didn't feel good and therefore that she would like to make a better feeling choice helps her to make a better feeling choice at earlier stages, so that the momentum doesn't carry her more into thoughts that then she can't control, that she needs a good night's sleep or a nice solid meditation or something to change the trajectory of the thought.
What do you do if, you're trying that every day, but you have I have a very, tough mind. I get annoyed with myself because it's like I'm trying to focus on something and something pulls me back. And I don't always know what it is. And I have some major goals that I want to achieve. And I know I can't be focusing on the lack of them. So I feel those.
Put it in softer terms. Rather than saying, I have a very tough mind that sometimes works against me, say instead, maybe if it feels better, I am a very good focuser. I'm a good focuser. And what I focus on, I allow the momentum to grow until that focus carries me. But I could choose what I focus upon more carefully. And then follow it up by saying, this will really help you a lot. In every moment that I am focused, my inner being is focused on the same thing with me. So you meet someone. Just now, after our conversation, Esther met yet another person in the kitchen who was insistent that she shouldn't be there. She caught Esther just as she was going in the door, and she said in a very commanding voice, "You're not allowed in there." And Esther said, well, I've talked to several people who have been allowing me, and so this is my last trip through. And she said, I'll go get my boss. So Esther stood there because she didn't want to disobey this woman who was not having any of her. And so she stood there, and this woman went and got her boss, who took Esther by the hand and said, I already told her it was okay. And Esther thought to herself, well, she didn't know. She didn't know. Esther had a very good opportunity to feel annoyed at this person who was just doing what her job really was. Or she had the option of giving that person the benefit of the doubt. So it always feels better to give someone the benefit of the doubt. And the reason that we tell you this long story is because we want you to give yourself the benefit of the doubt. You don't believe anything that you haven't worked hard to come to a belief about. And you want to believe that the beliefs that you have gathered from life are valid beliefs. And many of the beliefs that you've gathered from life are valid and also helpful beliefs. Esther argued with us in the beginning, but Abraham, it's true. It's true, so shouldn't I think about it? And we said, Esther, there are a lot of things that are true that you don't want to be true in your experience. The fact that they're true just means somebody else used their powerful mind to focus upon them until they became a reality. So you want to use a different criteria, not is it true, but is it something that I want to experience? And if it is something that you want to experience, then give it your undivided attention. But if it is not something that you want to experience, then do your best to distract yourself in some way. That really is the easy mindset about anything.
I'll give you an example of a belief that I don't think is working for me, which is why I'm so thankful that I discovered you and this whole concept of law of attraction.
Well, if you think a belief isn't working for you, speaking it again is only going to stack another engine on that end of the train. If you have a hint that it's not working for you, then not thinking it is what you want to do. So can you pivot and find the other end of it? Or is there so much momentum that you just got to tell it in the momentum that isn't serving you.
I would agree with that.
So
going from, corporate America to working for myself and having the concept of deadlines and production and people beating you over the head to get things done by a certain date, and I was always very good at that, get everything done that I had, and that's very action oriented, to doing something that is based on my personal preferences and getting a different mindset. The belief I want to have is that my personal preferences are as urgent as someone else, helping organizations be profitable.
Well, so we have some questions for you. Do you believe that your inner being exists?
Yes.
And do you believe that through life that you have gathered some clear desires?
Yes.
And do you believe that your inner being is a vibrational match to those desires?
Yes.
Do you believe that there is a path to what you want?
Absolutely.
Do you believe that your inner being has a clearer view of that path to what you want?
Yes.
Do you believe that if you were in more steady, constant is too strong a word, but more steady connection with your inner being, that your inner being could lead you to more of the things that you want?
Yes, I do.
And do you believe that feeling good is the path to that connection that will lead you to more of the things that you want?
Yes.
Do you believe that you hold some beliefs that don't help you?
Definitely.
Do you believe that your inner being holds those same beliefs?
No.
And how do you know the difference between a belief that you hold that doesn't help and the belief that your inner being holds about the same subject? How do you know?
I feel terrible.
So when you feel negative emotion, what's the first thing that it tells you? Your inner being isn't seeing it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So when you speak these things that feel uncomfortable when you say them, if you would say, clearly my inner being doesn't see it this way. Hey, inner being, how is it that you see it? Eventually, if you ask that question often enough, you'll start getting glimpses into how your inner being sees it. That's the whole turning thoughts to things process. It's a lovely thing when self-doubt begins to fall by the wayside.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lovely thing when you just begin to love yourself without evidence of being loved. And when you're looking to other people, most other people need you to show them evidence before they will agree with you that you are wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are exceptions to that. Your mother didn't feel that way in the beginning. And your new lover, not the one you've had for a while, but your new lover feels that way about you, and your inner being feels that way. Your inner being adores who you are in relationship to who you are. Mm-hmm. Because your inner being knows that being critical of you would only drive you away from who you want to be. Mm-hmm. And yet you all think that when you are critical of you, that somehow that's going to get you closer to what you want. We think that you've been taking too many motivational courses and not enough inspirational courses. Esther will say every now and again, I really shine in a crisis. And we say that's because the crisis causes you to focus. Mm-hmm. And when you focus, you gather the energy that creates worlds as assistance, you see.